Okay, folks, welcome back. Apologies for delays there. We're going to try again with Kenny's connection. If it doesn't work this time, you're going to have to cope with me on this full-time reaction. So, Kenny, starting from the top, a big win for us. Really difficult place to go, Easter Road. We don't have a great record there. A massive 3 points for us. What did you make of that this afternoon?
Well, that's an enormous 3 points in the context of the whole season. As soon as the Europa League fixtures came out, you just red-ringed this game as a big banana skin, bogey ground, away, a tough environment like Feyenoord, and then particularly with the amount they put into that game on Thursday. They didn't just run out to some defeat where they were saving their legs. They ran themselves into the ground, physically and mentally, very, very fatiguing. And to come to Hibs, I think we've had something like 4 or 5 wins in our last 17 or 18 fixtures at Easter Road. It's a really dire output. So to come away with the 3 points is a huge shot in the arm. I mean, with the starting 11, you're trying to balance, that momentum from midweek against fatigue. He's went with trying to keep the momentum. He's basically played the same side, and I think that was probably the right decision. Early in the game, we were under it a bit with their press. They've obviously thought, right, let's go at them from the off, and it was a bit uncomfortable. But there were really early signs that when we broke their press, when we broke their midfield line, that they were very vulnerable. McCowan should have scored. He got that small touch when he was through in the keeper. He should really just dinked that out wide and buried it. Yang should have kept himself on side when in a second instance where we scored and he was offside, and there was no need for him to be offside. So there was real threat there. And then the pressure told. They've slipped up for that opening goal, but then a really well worked goal. That second goal was Sirachi down that left hand side. Yang continuing to give us a bit of output. I thought we wouldn't see Yang in a jersey ever again after his game up at Dens Park. That would have been my preference, but he's sort of proven people wrong a bit coming back in. So that was all really good stuff. I think Engel was really brave for that second goal. He's bringing a bit of physicality to his game now. I think what Engels has missed in a Celtic jersey is a bit of heart. And he's got all the talent, Engels, but for his size and his shape, he doesn't quite give you that level of physicality. And there's signs now that that's coming, which will make him the rounded midfielder that we thought we'd bought. So that was strong. But in the second half, we can talk about the penalty. It's obviously a very marginal decision. And I don't think we covered ourselves in glory. We were sort of hanging on a bit there. I don't think Ralston, down that, a lot of danger coming down that left-hand side. Ralston, failing to getting himself caught out of position, failing to block crosses when he was back in position. But our two centre-backs, Trusty and Scales, were really solid in that last 20, 25 minutes, particularly Scales. A lot of really difficult defensive clearances. And Kasper Schmeichel, deep balls, coming and punching it, making a couple of important saves in behind. So it was about grit and resilience, ultimately winning that match. But they've got that in spades, and that's what Martin O'Neill does. That's what Martin O'Neill's sides are famed for, their resilience. They're famed for digging out results, particularly from his time at Celtic, whether it be a late winner or hanging on when you don't think you necessarily deserve the points. And that's what he does. He instills that mentality and mindset into the team. And there's no doubt that they're in a much better space now than they were when he arrived in every facet of their game, psychologically, their aggression in the ball, physically, and it's playing with a little bit more directness, which you could see in that first half. A lot of the stuff we were getting wasn't from sort of horseshoe-style stuff trying to break them down. It was just getting the ball forward quick and catching them off guard. So, look, brilliant performance, and it's one of those ones that you might look back on at the back end of the season and say it was really pivotal in terms of hopefully delivering a title.
Yeah, I think the last 3 away games, away to St Mirren, as you say, away to Feyenoord during the week, and then away to Easter Road today. It's a really difficult run of fixtures to come out with maximum points from all 3 of those games. Is huge credit to the team. We've won in different ways across those 3 games. Kenny, you mentioned the slow start today. I think Hibs had really their biggest chance of the game was that cross from Cadden that found Martin Boyle, where he really should have scored, but he puts it wide. And after that, we did really find our feet in the game. I thought Vio Hatate again, particularly in that first half. We talked about him after the game against Feyenoord the other night, and about his consistency and how he's not quite been there a lot in the last 12 months or so. But when he does play well, you can see there's a proper player there, and we know that from his time at Celtic. And I thought again in that first half he was very, very good. I think we might have lost I think we might have lost Kenny again. So I'm just going to take over. Apologies again for these technical problems. Rio Hatate, I thought he was very good in the first half. Really calm on the ball. Some really clever passes, a couple that he nicked round the corner. Kenny already mentioned that clip over the top for Luke McKibben when he should have went round the Hibs goalkeeper. I think the goalkeeper just got something on that touch from McKibben. I thought he could even have tried to lob it over him and get around the other side. Relatively unlucky. I thought Hatate, though, all round in the first half and the second, he did tire, as you can expect, having played during the week as well. And I think, again, that's something that you've come to expect with Hatate from time to time, that he can tire late on in games. But I think he was very good today. Engels alongside him, who gets the second goal for us. I mean, really, really brave. He gets a boot in the face for his trouble, bursts his nose, but great to see that sort of courage from him. And I think, he's been brilliant in the last two games now, Arnie Engels, and that's the sort of performance that we've been looking for from him. He and Hatate were the most common midfield pairing last season. And I think since last weekend, coming in during the week and then seeing it again today, I think that is the pairing that we should stick with. Now, I think it's going to be interesting to see what the new manager does, and we found out today before the game that obviously Wilfred Nonsi is delayed in some way because Martin O'Neill will be the manager for Wednesday's game against Dundee. But I think for now, that combination of Engels and Hatate has been very, very good for us in the last two games, and hopefully it's something to build on. I think that midfield area has been a problem for us. Callum McGregor has really carried the team. He's certainly carried the midfield in recent weeks. Thinking back to that game at Tynecastle, which I think was the last game Kenny was on, actually, we're in a much better place now, and a lot of that is owed to Callum McGregor's performances during that time. But to see better performances out of the likes of Engels and Hatate, it does really encourage you with how we move forward now. And we've got this game against Dundee during the week, and to be honest, it's a real big opportunity for us now if we can win that game during the week, go into next Sunday against Hearts at Celtic Park, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to take back control of the league title, get back outright top of the league, and hopefully under the stewardship of the new manager, then that's a better situation, calmer situation for him to take over from. I'm going to bring Kenny in one last time and see if this is a goer, and if not, we'll round off with just me. So, Kenny, I was just talking about the combination of Engels and Hatate there in midfield. I think they've been really good for us in the last two games now, and we understand Martin O'Neill's going to be in charge for Wednesday, but going forward, Callum McGregor has been carrying us in midfield, but going forward, better performances out of Engels and Hatate can hopefully give us a boost in that area of the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, they were fundamental to that win in Feyenoord. Hatate, just for his artistry, and he seems to have had a renewed belief under Martin O'Neill. I think what Martin did when he first came in is he took him straight out the side. I mean, he dropped him, and he was needing dropped. He needed dropped under Brendan Rodgers, but Brendan Rodgers inexplicably just kept persisting with him. He just needed a bit of time out the side to clear his head. And I dare say Martin O'Neill's man management is working off in Rio Hatate, because he's just got this renewed energy. His output, his assists, his goals, everything's returned. And he kept that up today for much of that game. Okay, he's faded off in the second half, but he killed the game off early on by being really pivotal in terms of hurting Hibs. Engels is the one that we've seen that before from Hatate. It's just about his consistency. Engels, we've seen flashes of what he can do, but he's been really inconsistent on the Engels. There's many games, where huge swathes of games, where he's just out of the picture. But I think for him, it's about his physicality. He's going to just learn to sit a little bit deeper, sit a little bit closer to McGregor at some times, not necessarily feel the pressure to be a Matt O'Reilly, because I think over time we've learned he's not a Matt O'Reilly. Matt O'Reilly would sit up really high, complement Hatate, and be a real offensive force. I don't really think that's Engels' game. I think he's more of an all-rounder. And perhaps sitting in that really 8 position, sitting in a little bit tighter with Callum and helping him out is what seems to suit him. But he has to do that with physicality and grit, because he's a great long sprayer of the ball. But what we're now seeing is that being accompanied with the physicality and the grit. he was doing it a lot during the week. He was putting his body on the line where it hurt. He put his body on the line where it hurt to get the winning goal today. And if he can keep doing that, he's still a young guy, and we can build that midfield three and give Rio that freedom to be that offensive threat that he is. That could just be the foundation of us going on and having a really strong season. Because Nygren, and bringing Nygren off the bench, I think is a nice option, because he seems to come on and affect games nice late on rather than from the start. We've had mixed output from him from the start, so that's a nice dynamic that could really be the sort of centre of how we move forward this season.
Yeah, let's hope so. Just before half time, Kenny, we did have a chance to make it 3-0, and that would have put a different complexion on that. Would have finished the game, and we could maybe have had a plainer sailing second half. It was a really nice move. Sarachi ended up striking the post. And as like I say, without that cushion, we go into the second half, we give away the penalty kick. I suppose we should talk a bit about that decision now. There's a lot of comments in the live chat about it. I think it's difficult really to nail it one way or the other. I don't think it's an absolute howler. I can understand why they gave it. It does hit his hand. If anybody's been at the game or they haven't seen the right angle, it does hit him in the hand. It looks like it could be his shoulder at one point, high up his arm, but it does strike him in the hand. And I think he's sort of stood down, Liam Scales, to head the ball. It's coming. He can't see it. It's coming over a Hibs player. Rocky Bashiri's behind him. And I think he just misjudges the flight of it a wee bit as he goes to head it. And as soon as I saw the replay, I thought there's a good chance they're going to go and give a penalty here. What was your opinion on that? I
mean, look, very, very subjective, very marginal. I couldn't accurately articulate the handball rule to you, Paul. There's so many factors, it seems, that influence a ref's decision, and they're not applied in a consistent way from match to match. So I don't. It's almost impossible to judge now. Was it intentional? No, you can't say that. Was his hand in an unnatural position? No. Was it getting in the back of the net? No. There's maybe an argument that actually went off his shoulder onto his hand. That's a very marginal thing, but that in itself also points to no penalty. I think there's enough there to say that that's not a penalty in the strength of those four ingredients. Now, Hibs will say, well, he motioned his arm slightly towards the ball. It was dropping into an area where their centre forwards could have put it into the net. And they're reasonable arguments. I think, and I suppose we're bound to say this, right? Well, it's hard to be completely objective, but I think on balance it wasn't a penalty. But your heart's in your mouth as soon as you see anything nowadays hitting an arm in the box, irrespective of intent, the likelihood is you're in trouble. So that came at a difficult time for us, because had we held on to 70, 75 minutes, you've saw out a larger proportion of the game, but that put us under the cosh early in the second half.
Aye, it did. And then I think after that, Kenny, we started the game poorly. We had a really good spell round about the goals up until half-time. I think the entire second half, I think it took us a long, long time to get a shot at goal. We just looked like we really lacked energy, and you could say that's the exertions of Thursday starting to show for us, but we just lost control of it. And while the Hibs didn't, they had a flurry of corners towards the end, but defending that we had to do. Schmeichel had a good save from Chris Cadden as well, but I think we just couldn't get control of it. And even when we were keeping the ball, we weren't sort of gaining that much territory from it. It was a bit of safe possession. We were still in our defensive half, and we just couldn't grab control of the game again like we did in the first half and that second half. Yeah,
I mean, look, it's not uncommon, is it? The players were understandably fatigued, right? You can allow them that, I think. And the psychology, it's a tough place to go. And the psychology of a game like that, it's hard for them to go. It's hard for them to play with a natural rhythm when they know they're only a goal away from blowing it. They've got to play with a little bit more conservatism. And I think that confused them a bit. It meant players like McGregor and Engels were giving away cheap free kicks in difficult situations because they didn't have the gumption to take their usual level of responsibility and go past a man or play a more dangerous ball forward, because they could sense that could come back to haunt them. So I think they just get caught up in this sort of unhealthy mindset of trying to protect a league, because when we were going forward, Yang was still seemingly a bit of a threat out on that left-hand side, not much coming down that right-hand side, because my God, we desperately need to sign a natural right-hand sided winger. But I thought maybe bringing Taneki on earlier on, although Yang was still a threat, just bringing on an extra pair of fresh offensive legs might have helped things. Dyson was pretty sort of poor that last half hour, because you're sort of reliant on his hold-up play being a bit tidier, and there was at times where it was, he was losing possession. But I think you have to expect a bit of that, get all things considered. And what I would say is that I thought Trustee and Scales were excellent. I really did. They're There are no mugs up front. That Scottish international they have up front is a handful, and Martin Boyle, we know Bowie, and we know Martin Boyle is a handful. But Trusty has got physicality, he's got pace, he matched Bowie. Martin Boyle, didn't really surface with too much danger in that second half. So I think they deserve real credit. Trusty has come in when Cameron Carter-Vickers went out. I would say Trusty's output has been better than Cameron Carter-Vickers this season. He's come in and actually improved things in the central of defence. We had that horror show with Dave Murray out in Hearts, but if you think where we've come from then to now, coupled with Scales becoming a really established international centre-back. Now, you and I both, Paul, have had real doubts over Scales over his career at Celtic, but I think we have to just draw a line under that view of him now and recognise that there's someone in there that is consistently performing at a level that meets the Celtic standard. I do think that now. I mean, we'd be in a bit of trouble, I think, if he was injured, because there's a lot of chemistry down that left-hand side. Just starts from his ability to bring balance, and those two centre-backs can be pretty pivotal today in those 3 points.
Yeah, I think we would be in trouble if Scales get injured. It's going to be interesting to see if it is Nancy that comes in eventually, if he's going to play 3 centre-halves. With Carter-Vickers out, that's a bit of a problem for us, and it could be an area we might need to recruit in January. Before we come back to the managerial situation, Kenny, just to round us off, comment asking about the thoughts of a penalty claim on Yang. I think that was a head knock in the second half where he gets to the ball first, and then Bashiri has a clash of heads. Do you think there's much in that?
No, I didn't. At the time, obviously Yang's come off worse, so it looks a bit like potentially like a penalty. But you won the ball. I think the guy won the header, yeah, and then it's just a clash of heads. So, had he gone down and Yang gone down, you wouldn't even be talking about it. I think it was just a coming together after Bashiri won the ball, albeit, he's a much more physical player, and Yang comes off worse in terms of going to ground. But no, I think that would have been a bit desperate if we try to claim that.
Yeah. You mentioned Martin O'Neill briefly already. I suppose we should just talk about a bit more about his sort of influence in the team and the situation, how he's improved the situation is remarkable, really. I know Hearts have sort of fallen off in recent weeks. I think they've only won their last 5 games now, but we've won all the games that we should have won, and we've really closed that gap. And I think a lot of people would maybe like to see him stay a wee bit longer. I think, again, that's the sort of emotional attachment we feel to Martin O'Neill, but he's been exactly what we needed at this time, hasn't he?
If you think about the circumstances in which he came in, Brendan Rodgers goes literally overnight. He goes in a stramash of real sort of negative ill feeling, and Martin O'Neill gets a phone call. He said he was down in London outside the Talk Sport studios, and then within 8 hours he's in a press conference at Celtic Park trying to handle all of this. It's incredible. And although Martin O'Neill, I'm sure, isn't taking training every day, and I'm sure Sean Maloney has been a real force in terms of structuring the tactics of the side, Martin O'Neill never did. He was never famed for his training ground performance when he was here. Originally at Celtic, he would come in on a Friday and he would guide people, and he would use his ability to instill belief and his ability to inspire. And although 25 years has passed since he first came in, and the modern game has moved on in many ways, one thing that transcends all of that is the psychology of the game. And Martin O'Neill has not lost any of that. At the age of 73, he's clearly, just his presence and his astuteness of mind and his ability to manage and inspire people and reinstill belief is all still there. And you can't buy it. It's very difficult to buy that. Few people are able to do that in a leadership position in any walk of life. And he's a master at it. And it's clearly had a huge effect here. Cup final, back to effectively top of the league, a real foundation to go on and qualify for Europe. If you tasked him with, if you thought that would be the outcome when he was dragged up from the TalkSport studios, you would think it would be an impossible ask, but he's achieved it. And I think Maloney deserves a lot of credit as well. He sat in the background. He's clearly had a really positive impact. You don't hear from him, but he must have had a really positive impact into how the side has been functioning. Would I like to see them stay on to the end of the season? Of course you would. Logically, you can't look at what he's achieved. Even if you look past that sort of romance and just look at the results, you logically would want him to stay until the end of the season. Could they do that? they're in this bizarre situation where I suppose it's difficult, right? I mean, he's now elevated. They've elevated themselves to a position whereby maybe the board do think, well, perhaps we should have paused things to the end of the season. It's hard for them to preempt that, and then they're down the road with someone. It's a bit difficult. But I think what's crucial in the transition is that Maloney stays. Martin will move on, but Maloney, I think, really needs to stay and help bridge that gap from Nancy coming in from the cold, from a league that he's had no experience in, and help retain the momentum through Maloney. I think that's an important part of what we do.
Well, just on that, I want to bring in a comment saying apologies for already discussed it, guys, but do you think we should give him until the Hearts game at least? I guess you can say that if you're not throwing in Nancy, then you're probably never going to at all. I mean, who knows what's happening? I think it seemed really clear that it was going to be Hibs today was Martin O'Neill's last game, and obviously Martin O'Neill confirmed before the game that it won't be, and he'll be there in the dugout on Wednesday because they're still going through the process, I think is what he said. Now, whether that's a work permit issue or something else for Nancy, I don't know. But have you got a gut feel on why that might be delayed? And then what do you think about that question? Like, do you give him to the Hearts game? Because, again, high-stakes game for his first game in charge, but then you'll get the cup final next week. And if you go on the basis that he needs to go in at some point, if you believe in him to be the next manager, you need to just put him in at some point. But you can understand, as you've just covered, the positive run of results that we're on, why you might not want to interrupt that. It's a crazy situation, really.
Yeah, I mean, why is it delayed? It might be a work permit, I don't know. But it's probably delayed because the board are pretty inept, let's face it. I mean, the history of the board doing things in a swift, professional way is really poor. So maybe they're just nitpicking over minor details of the contract where it would be for the greater good just to put it to bed. I have no idea. I'm only speculating there. You would think the natural time for O'Neill to leave would be after the cup final. The next 3 games are crucial. Hearts, you could scarcely write a more sort of pivotal 3-game course of the season. Hearts, Roma, and the cup final. At the end of that, you could be top of the league, have delivered a trophy, and have qualified for Europe, the Europa League knockouts. That could be the output of those 3 games. That's a bit of an unfair ask to throw Nancy in and just assume that he's going to achieve that. You would think that the current setup should probably remain in place for those 3 games. Then there's more of a breathing space for Nancy to come in and be pitched in at a fairer point in the season. Can the board engineer that? They can. They obviously can. Nancy's not signed. They could say to Nancy, look, the way that this is shaped out, you know, there's a more of a natural space for you to come and join, and it's after that cup final. It might suit Nancy, probably suit Celtic, probably suit Martin O'Neill. Will they do that? It's very hard because it's such an unusual situation. But I'm sure everyone would be delighted if that was an approach. Now, the one thing here is we don't know about Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill might be desperate to go. You just don't know. I mean, he's
he keeps saying that he is. Yeah, whether that's just like whether he's just pretending or not, you never know.
Yeah, he occasionally lets his guard down. I think he said in an interview with Sky during the week that deep down he's loved it. He must be loving it, right? He loves Celtic. He's been a success. He loves the game. There's no reason. There's no doubt he will still be enjoying it. But things are going well. They don't always go well. It's difficult being the permanent manager. He might not. He might not. I'd imagine he'd be delighted to see out the St Mirren game at the cup final. I can't imagine that would be an issue for him. And beyond that, he moves on. But it's a strange situation. It really is that we've got this real momentum under someone, and we're actively going to remove them. We need to watch what we're doing because Nancy might not hit the ground running. It might be a real problem, and we're lying in wait there. We just don't know, and it's not like they're flying in the league. A point ahead. So
yeah, lots of unknowns and loads of comments coming in about this manager situation. I know that a good point being made that Wilfred Nancy's French, so I mean a work permit shouldn't be an issue. Who knows what the delay is? There was talk. I can see somebody's talking about compensation. I think there was talk that sort of changed. That situation changed on the 1st of December, which is tomorrow now. Somebody's saying it's the 4th of December that situation changes. I mean, who knows what the situation is. My sort of gut feel is that unless it is some contractual thing that hasn't really been clearly reported or nobody knows about, you're just concerned that something deeper is wrong, and the delays are because their season's done now. The MLS season is finished because they're out of the playoffs, and I just don't really know what the delay would be. And listen, we know the Celtic board may well capitalise on a PR opportunity to just keep Martin O'Neill in there if people's sentiment is that they're happy with that. But I don't really know what that means in terms of your pursuit of somebody, if you want him to be the guy. Who knows? It's not clear, and there's certainly not any reputable sources who are reporting on what's happening. It's been quite a low-key pursuit of Wilfried Nancy, and I think it's been kept behind closed doors, so we're a bit in the dark with it. But Kenny, to round us off then, like I say, Dundee during the week, Hearts next weekend, which is a massive game, but we can really take a hold of this now. And if you go back to, I think, the last time you were on, when we got beat at Tynecastle, and I think, including our game in hand, did we end up 8 or 9 points behind at one stage? So, I mean, incredible turnaround in a short space of time.
Yeah, I mean, we were in disarray after that Hearts game. Clearly, there was more deep-rooted toxic issues going on between Rodgers and the club that I don't think anyone truly understood the scale of at the time, and that must have been affecting what was going on the park, because they were losing their way under Brendan. When he left, I really feared that the season could very quickly unravel. It's gone the opposite way, and to be fair, you have to. I know we malign Dermot Desmond, and rightly so. But I thought the way they mocked Rodgers on his exit was appalling. Actually, he deserves more respect than that. But one thing he did do, which was seemingly very astute, was appoint Martin O'Neill. That was a left field move. We were all shocked when we read that. But he's come in, and the job he's done to steady the ship is something that, you know, you could barely have predicted. But they've just got to stamp on that now. They've got to win on Wednesday night, and they've got to beat Hearts at home. It's two crucial fixtures, and then we've just got to get through to January and get the recruitment right. This season is only going to see ourselves out. We're only going to push on in Europe, and we're only going to take a real stranglehold in the league if we sign a striker, if we sign a right winger, if we sign another centre-back. Because although Trusty and Scales are doing well, you don't have anyone in behind them at all. We're being fortunate that we're free of injury there at the moment. So there's a whole load of work to do in January, and that is complex as well with a new manager. You know, if he did keep an 8 with the season, you give him a lot of money in January. That's difficult if you know he's going in 3-4 months later. So you don't. Well, but William Nancy, will he know the American market? Will there be some gems in there? There might be. Because it's hard for us to afford top English players. It's hard for us to go into a top 5 league and pull somebody out for £4 million and have any confidence in them. Your money goes a lot further in these other markets. And if Wilfried Nancy has a good understanding of the MLS market, that might work out okay for us. So January's a huge time, but it's exciting. We could go on a nice Europa League run. I think we're playing at a level. If Engels and Hatate keep up that level of performance inside McGregor, there's no reason why we can't go on and win every domestic trophy and do well in Europe. And it did not look like we would get anywhere near that when Brendan Rodgers left in the middle of the night. So it's exciting times for the club and a crucial win today.
Yeah, absolutely. Just finally then, man of the match, can you single somebody out as man of the match today?
Yeah, I'd probably have went Rio certainly at half time. But then I think as the match wore on, it was the defending that sort of won it, I think, in the end, you know, because we didn't I think it'd be a bit tough to give it to a forward player when we only had one, you know, we didn't have another shot on target after Engels' goal in 20 odd minutes. So I'd give it to Scales. I just thought there was some leadership there, some really, really heroic sort of clearances, solid in the air. I'd probably on balance just give it to Scales without there being a really obvious candidate. It was more of a team performance today.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. There you go. That's a full-time reaction. I'll see you during the week for the build-up to that game against Dundee. Thank you for joining us.